Welcome back to Why We Nurse. I'm your host, Serena Tobar, and today we're taking a look behind the scenes of nurse residency programs at the people who shape the future of nursing on a system wide scale. I am joined by Heather Wallace, a Regional Nurse Residency Coordinator who oversees programs across multiple hospitals. In this episode, we'll explore how residency programs are built, what it takes to support new nurses across diverse settings, and the vision behind creating strong, competent professionals from day one. Welcome, Heather.
Hey, so glad to be here. This is so cool.
Yes, we're excited to have you. Let's start with your journey. How did you move into the role of residency coordinator, and what drew
Okay.
you to this kind of leadership?
I actually started nursing as a pediatric nurse, pediatric ICU, became a nurse, actually started as a parent of a patient, had a NICU baby, and was inspired by several nursing students who had her as their patients for the day. And then a new grad nurse who was just so excited about their career. And I was young and trying to decide what I was going to do with my life. I had this new baby and how am I going to support us? And they were just so excited about nursing. So I was like, why not? This seems like a great way to go. So was in pediatric ICU, and then moved into the education side, loved precepting, and then got the opportunity to move into education. Through that, did leadership, and then ended up in an organization with you for a while, and was brought in to be the coordinator of the nurse residency program at a big academic medical center and get theirs accredited, and have just loved. It's so refreshing to see how excited they come into nursing and see them blossom from, this very nervous, not really confident new grad to moving on to precepting. I've actually got 2 members of my team in nurse residency that were former nurse residents.
Oh, that's so wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Can you describe your role at the regional level? What does your day to day look like having to
Oh,
oversee these multiple hospitals?
so I am the market director over 3 markets. And so I have 12 hospitals total that have nurse residencies. And so there's coordinators that do the boots on the ground, hands on with the residents. We teach the classes together via Zoom. So I teach some of the professional development classes, the EBP classes. Like I said, I'm pediatric, so I don't do the clinical classes because it's all adult based, but I help coordinate the classes between all of the subject matter experts, making sure that we are getting the best of the best for our residents. We take residents 3 times a year, so there's a lot of planning behind that. And I'm part of a national team, and we have hospitals throughout the country. And we started this standardized program we went live in 2023. And so we're from Texas. And so Texas goes big bang. So we went live all at one time because that's how we roll. And so now we're in the process of getting those same programs accredited. And so my day to day, sometimes I'm teaching, sometimes I'm in meetings with leaders, really promoting the program, trying to get that standardization and make sure we're doing the best for our residents. And then 3 times a year, I get to go to a graduation ceremony and see the product of what they've done all year, and they're presenting their evidence-based practice projects, and then welcoming in the new ones that are coming in right behind them. So it's a little varied, and that's the best part about it. Is that it's not stagnant, something new every day.
I like that. I think when we come into education, people talk a lot about, how are you with doing kind of, a lot of repetitive type work. But I have found that it is very much the opposite of that. There
Yeah.
is not a lot of repetitive work. It is very much a different day every day, even though it's the same project or the same, like I do new employee orientation. And so you would think that that would just be the same old every week, but it's different personalities coming in. So it does make it very, very different from each time that I do it. The energy is different, and the things that people have that they bring to the table are very different. And it's all fun every single time, but it's just different.
I agree. It's each cohort that we have of residents is so varied. Sometimes we end up with a lot of 2nd degree nurses. Sometimes we've got a lot of, this is their first job ever. So it is varied in that way, whether they come from local or we have some come from, out of the state and they're new to the state. And so we're trying to match them up with some of their peers to learn how to get around town, where's the best place to eat, so
Mhm.
it's different every time. And we as educators are always trying to make it more fresh, more engaging. Just the residency program from when we started in 2023 to the way it is now, it is so very different. And that's based on feedback of the educators, the residents, the preceptors, the leaders. And so we've made it better and better each cohort. And we'll continue to do that because we don't want to do the same thing just because that's the way we've always done it.
Right. So how do you ensure consistency and quality across the different hospitals and the teams, the different teams that you're working with?
A lot of communication. We do have quality improvement processes that we do at the end of orientation of each cohort. We look back at that cohort and did they meet all the steps they were supposed to meet? And then at the end of their 1 year, we look back at the whole year to see if, what they did consistently. And then we also have a process where we do peer evaluations. So the subject matter experts who are teaching the content, whether that's the clinical course or the professional development course, there's a process where they are looking at the standard presentation that comes from national. We have subject matter experts from throughout the country that help write the curriculum, and we update it every 2 years. And so that standard program, the subject matter expert for this hospital who's going to teach it may want to tweak it a little bit, add in the policies for that particular area, or take out some of the content and I'm going to make this into a game, or I'm going to make this into a quiz, not just do the standard content. It's all based on case studies and really trying to apply that knowledge. And so we have a process where if any changes that they make to the standard content, they have to fill out a form to let us know what they're changing. And that goes through a curriculum committee to look at, are we staying within the rails? Are we going a little bit off? And then the other piece is each subject matter expert who teaches a class, they are evaluated on an annual basis by another educator who actually watches them present and gives them feedback on their presentation style. So we have both phases of the content evaluation and then evaluation of the presenter. The biggest challenge we have is that we're only one of the priorities of leaders. They have so much on their plate between all of the quality initiatives and employee engagement and patient satisfaction. And there's so many things that they have that I try to remind the site coordinators and myself that we are here to collaborate, not compete.
Mhm.
And if we partner with those leaders, a lot of what they're facing would be fixed through residency. Their engagement is going to be better. Definitely their staffing is going to be better if we can retain these nurses. We're going to help upskill their preceptors and put them in more of a leadership role if they go through the training that they're supposed to do. And we remember to thank them. Preceptors
Mhm.
are so tired. We're giving them
Yes.
one after another after another. And, some of them have said, hey, I need a break. And so we need to look at, don't always give the most tenured nurse that responsibility all the time. It's okay, especially at the beginning of orientation, to give a younger nurse to that new grad as a preceptor because they remember what it was like to be there and they're just teaching the basics. It'll help
Mhm.
solidify their basics and bring in this new person in a more engaging way. So just
Yeah.
thinking outside the box a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
Not everybody likes to precept. I
and
loved
not
it.
everybody should be made to, be forced to.
Right.
It's not everybody's cup of tea,
And if you
but
think about it, if you're forcing somebody to precept, is the resident getting the best experience, right? Are they learning all of the things that they need to learn? Or are they kind of left floundering and the preceptor's just kind of there, but they're there more like on the periphery and not
mhm,
really engaged with the
yeah.
nurse resident?
Yeah, because we use what's called the married state model of precepting, and they're supposed to be one person together taking care of the patient assignment together. And if you've got a disgruntled preceptor who really doesn't want to do that, they're not going to give the best impression or the best experience for that new grad or any nurse coming into the organization. Sometimes we have to remind them you are grooming a coworker. Your staffing is not great. This is your relief, but you've got to train them to get them there. So you're going to be able to trust them. They're going to be able to trust you and your partner. but we've got to get them there. And yes, residents take a little bit longer than bringing in an experienced nurse, but they're not going to have the bad habits that your experienced nurse may have. So
Right. They're
there's
kind of like little
both sides.
sponges.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you really just put a little bit of effort into them, they're little sponges. They're just going to absorb everything that you're telling them, everything that you're teaching them, and now you have basically build your own coworker kind of situation.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
you can mold them into the coworker that you really want, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah. You're
right?
building your team. So bring them in, love them up.
Yes,
And they're
yes.
not always gonna stay. They're not always
They're
gonna stay,
they're
especially
not.
if you're bringing them into med surg. That's not everybody's forever home, and that's okay. I was talking to a leader the other day who was in a med surg area, and she was saying, we're just so tired of bringing in another cohort, and they don't stay. They go to ICU, they go to ER. And I said, that's because you're doing a good job. If they do
Mhm,
those things and stay in your organization and not go next door, you did a great job.
exactly.
You're going to keep maybe half of them and show them med surg is a specialty. You can get certified in this,
Mhm,
can stay here for a while. If you can do that
yes.
for half of them, that's a win. If the other
Yeah,
half stay in the organization and we help them get to where they want to go in the next step in their career, that's still a win. So it's
right,
your mindset when you're bringing them in. Don't get your
right.
feelings hurt if they don't stay on your unit forever.
Yes, as a leader, we want to pour into our team and we want to build them up where they can really go anywhere. But like you said, as long as we're building them up and we're keeping them in the organization, that is a humongous win,
Yeah.
right? Because now we haven't built them up to make them this great nurse for some other organization. We have built them up, we've kept them here. And then they're going to tell their friends who are going through nursing school, hey, come work for this unit. They help build me up. They help make me, be this. And now I can work in the ER. Now I can work in the ICU. Now I can work in the OR. I can go where I want to go. And that's what we all want. We want to build our team and we want to manage them up and we want them to be able to meet those personal and professional goals, right? Because all of our leaders started somewhere and probably
Yeah.
med surg.
Yeah. I remember interviewing, I wasn't in a residency, it was kind of a residency, but we got to pick two different units that we did 6 weeks and 6 weeks. And so I did general pediatrics and I did pediatric ICU. Pediatric ICU, I loved it, but I was a little scared of it at first. But then we had a panel interview with the leaders, and then they decided which unit we would end up on. And so I remember my manager saying, well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I'm like, in your chair. And once I actually found out what a manager did, I'm like, no, that sounded great, but no thanks. I'll stay with the patients. And then I moved into education instead. So, part of it is you never know where your career is going to end up. Did
Mhm.
you think you were going to be running a podcast? No. I'm so impressed with all the different avenues nursing has to offer. And you don't have to stay forever. Some of it, you may have to pay your dues a little bit, but there's so many opportunities. And these guys coming in have such a long career. You don't have to do everything today.
Right. You
You've
don't
got a
have to be the
lifetime.
CVICU nurse right now. There's time to grow into that role. And hopefully, kind of the point of this podcast is to really help nurses see there are so many different avenues that you
Hmm.
can take with this career. And what's so great about nursing is if you get burnt out in one area, you can move into another area. Right?
Yeah.
As your family changes, as your life circumstance changes, maybe 312s doesn't work for you and you need more of a Monday through Friday type schedule.
Hmm.
Maybe Monday through Friday doesn't work for your schedule or your life and you need the 312s. And that's again, that's what's so great with nursing is there's remote positions and there's in person, there's home health, there's so many avenues that you can take and still be a nurse.
Yeah. Yeah. We have the virtually integrated nurses. And, I've ran a RSV clinic as a side gig. I've done, like I've taught in academia, taught clinicals. And so there's so many different things that you can kind of dip your toe in or jump all in and say, I'm, moving from point A to point B. And if I don't like it, I'll go back.
Yeah. For sure. So, what are some common struggles that you might see among the new nurse residents, and how do you help overcome those?
I think just to get to the point of getting in a residency is so hard and competitive that a lot of times they're their worst critic.
Mhm.
Just to get into nursing school is a struggle. To make it all the way through nursing school is a struggle. We know that there's, a huge dropout rate, then to pass boards, and then residency is uber competitive. And so by the time they get to us, they're so used to that compete, compete, compete that we've got to get them to step back and say, just take it in. Just take a
Mhm.
beat, take this time to learn. You're not going to be your preceptor when you get off orientation. They are very hard on themselves. They don't think they're learning as fast as they should, especially if you've got some that are more than one on a unit. They're always comparing themselves to each other. And I had a conversation earlier this week with a resident who is struggling, and I asked, are there other residents on your floor? Yes. And I feel like they're doing better than me. I said, well, they had a different preceptor than you. They came into this different than you. Maybe they were second career and you're not. Just the luck of the draw of which patients you get. You may get different experiences. Um, you know, and this candidate, this resident was only halfway through the orientation period. I said, you're only halfway there. You will be ready by the end. We're going to make sure you're ready. We're not going to throw you out there if we think you're not ready to take on a patient assignment by yourself. But just take this time to learn all of it and don't be so hard on yourself. That either the imposter syndrome or the comparison is really tough for them. And not all staff members are nice, and part of it is, like we talked about, not all staff members are meant to be a preceptor. And so we've got to listen to our residents when they're struggling and give them that time to either vent or say, hey, I need something different.
How do you balance the clinical expectations of the nurse residents with emotional support and mentorship?
We have well being activities throughout our entire 12-month program. So it starts with the orientation to residency. We tell them very clearly this is going to be a long, hard journey. We talk to them about the transition cycle, and we actually show them that diagram several times throughout the year. And we'll have sessions where we talk about, what's going well, what's not going well. And, if after doing this for so long, we kind of know where to put these little discussions. And so we'll have, a group that's really negative and, this isn't going right, this isn't going right, and I don't feel good about this. And so we'll pull out that chart again and say, well, you're at 5 months. Remember, we told you at 5 months you were going to be dipping down and you were going to be at this crisis point, and you've heard it. All of you guys are there. It's not just, you're definitely not there alone. That's part of that cohort model, is that they can talk to each other and hear that they are going through the same thing. We give them the bandwidth. We call it peer-to-peer debriefs, where they can talk about what they're struggling with in a safe space. If it's something that we need to intervene on, we'll let them know. We're not going to go behind their back and go talk to their leaders. If it's something that's for their safety or the safety of their patients, we'll let them know. Either I'll go with you to talk to your leader, or this needs to be escalated because this, whatever it is not okay, and we need to make sure you're okay. We let them know of the well-being activities and resources we have in the organization. So both mental health, we've got some well-being programs, we've got everything from meditation to exercise to diet resources for them. And so we introduce those multiple times throughout the year. We remind them that they're there. We actually go through some of the activities together as a group so they can see what it's like. So we try really hard to build that resilient nurse throughout that year, not just a clinically competent nurse. Because nursing is hard.
It is. And it sounds like you have a lot of resources and a lot of activities built into the program
Mhm.
already. So I think, I would probably want to go through your program as a new nurse. And
Yeah,
I've
I
said
wish
it
I had a
before.
nurse residency.
Yes, I've said it before on the podcast. I didn't have a nurse residency. And I mean,
That
like,
wasn't a
this
thing.
sounds so amazing. Like, just to be able to, sometimes I have to remind people to slow down, right? Because
Mhm.
not just nurse residents, but even experienced nurses, as they're coming through, as I told you, I do new employee orientation, and they're coming through and they're like, they're ready to just like go take care of the patient. And I'm like, you have all the rest of the time to be on your feet for 12 hours and take care of patients. Just slow down, make your easy money while you can.
Right.
right?
Maybe we're giving you.
Yes, the nurse residency program. Yes, there's some classes and whatever. And I know you want to go out there and you just want to jump in feet first and be a nurse and spend 12 hours on the unit taking care of patients. And that's wonderful that you want to be that caregiver. But take the time also to develop yourself and slow down a little bit and, maybe sit down for a day and be in a class and see what that has to offer you.
Mhm.
Give that the opportunity, the same opportunity you want everybody to give you.
Yeah, it's so funny when a cohort or two has come in behind them and we say, think about, how are they doing? Have you checked in on them? And they're like, oh my gosh, I remember what it was like. I can't believe how much I've grown in this short
Mhm.
amount of time. Or at graduation, how they look back over the year and how far they've come in just a year is really rewarding to see that they get how far they've come.
So, how do you stay connected to the realities of bedside nursing while you're working at the system level?
I do site visits. So I go to the various campuses and try to round with the site coordinators. Like I said, I go to the welcome breakfast and meet the new groups and the graduation ceremonies with the ones that are coming out. We have steering committees for each market, and we ask that those include current and former residents as well as preceptors because we need their voice when we're planning activities, when we're talking about the program. It can't just be a bunch of educators who hadn't been at the bedside in a while talking about the way things should be. We've got to know how things really are. So we need their voice there. So I don't get to do it quite as much as I would like. I would love to round more on the units with the residents. That's the site coordinators are definitely in the trenches with the residents, rounding on them and their preceptors and talking to them firsthand on a regular basis.
Do you hope the next generation of nurses carries forward from this residency experiences?
I hope that they see the opportunity that they were afforded and um, that they learn from both those good nurses and the ones that weren't so good. This is the way I want to be a nurse. So they'll take, the best of everything and make it their own. I hope that they continue to have a curiosity about nursing and that sense of inquiry that we talk about through the EVP projects, that it's not just the way we've always done it. I think that this generation that's coming up I wouldn't say intolerant. That's not quite the right word. They advocate for themselves more. They want to have a good work environment. They want to feel good about their work at the end of the day.
Yeah, the priorities are
Mhm.
very different than
Yeah.
previous.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think, that they will advocate for themselves and they will make the workplace better. I hope that that nursing in general doesn't get too dependent on technology and stop thinking. AI is great sometimes.
Mm.
It gives you some crazy information too. So we've got to
Yes.
keep our nursing brain on that we worked so hard to get in nursing school and keep questioning, is this the right thing? Just because a computer said it was right doesn't mean it's right. Just because the
Yes.
doctor said it's right doesn't mean it's right.
We have to always have that questioning attitude,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Don't ever give that up.
Exactly. What advice would you give a nurse who wanted to move into an education or a nurse residency coordinator role?
I think the biggest kind of aha, and I even talk to the new educators about, you're going to go through this transition cycle too. Anytime you
Mhm.
change jobs, change organizations, change roles, you're going to go through that year of uncertainty where it's this opportunity I've been given. I'm on this high, go through the honeymoon phase, and then it's going to be, oh my gosh, what have I done with my life? Why did I make this decision? I miss my friends. I miss the safety and of knowing everything and being the top dog, and now I'm the newbie again. But I think educators need to think of their role a little bit differently. You're not going to get the thank yous from the patients. You're not going to see that immediate impact that you have on your patients, but your scope is so much bigger. Now you are affecting thousands of patients instead of the hundreds that you deal with. So your scope is so much broader, and being able to be that change agent and that welcoming person, whether you're teaching new employee orientation or CPR or whatever you get the opportunity to teach along the way, that you are bringing in either that next generation of nurses or new nurses to your organization and making them part of your family.
And I think even still myself, 6 years into being in the education role, I still find myself, with that dilemma of, I miss having that direct
Yeah.
impact on patients. I miss, that one-to-one time with the patients and being able to take care of patients. And I have to remind myself, instead of the impact on 5 patients for the shift, now
Uh-huh.
I have an impact on all, 400 patients that are in the hospital, right? Because I, in some form or fashion, touch every nurse in that hospital, who
Uh-huh.
then touches every patient in that hospital.
Right. It's just different. And that was part of why I started teaching clinicals too, was I was moving away from pediatrics into education and then into leadership. And so I still wanted to have that clinical piece. So I taught clinicals on the weekends, which made for a really long week. But again, those students are so excited about the silliest stuff. They didn't even get to do it. You just got to see it and they were
Yes.
excited. So it kept that energy up for me. And then I had that piece of seeing patients and touching patients along the way. So I wish I could do it more. I just don't have the time right now. I'll get back to it.
How has this role changed your view of nursing?
I think I was always kind of idealistic about nursing, but I've been able to see it in a much more broad spectrum. I became a nurse at 24. My husband became a nurse at 42, and very different perspectives. And seeing I was a good nurse, but I didn't have the life experience. And so getting to see, support those nurses that are, this is their first, really responsible job and the weight of that. And then seeing those who've always wanted to be a nurse and now their life has afforded them the opportunity to move into nursing is really exciting to see both ends. So being able to see the bigger picture of not only nursing but healthcare as you kind of move up in your career and your scope gets bigger, whether that's through education or leadership or whatever, getting to see the inner workings. I've always been one of those curious people who wants to know, how does that work? Why does it work? Why did you make that decision? I remember being at the bedside. One of my favorite parts of the day was when the physician groups would round, because I was in an academic medical center and teaching hospital. And so when the groups would come around, I loved listening to, what are they talking about? Why are they making this decision? I'm seeing the little medical student or first year resident shaking in their boots, giving their report and saying, this is what I think we should do. And then either getting the, yes, you got that right, or no, let's think of this a different way. So I've always loved that part of it. And then as I got to go to leadership meetings and hear the broader picture of the hospital and why are we making the decisions we're making, has just been really interesting. There's stuff that I wish bedside nurses knew, but you can't know all of it until you really get there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And we've talked to a nurse leader, and one of the things that she said that makes her role, important, and that the way she likes to be a leader is to be transparent. And so the bedside nurses, I hopefully, through the residency program and through your mentorship and the mentorship of their preceptors and their educators, can learn to look up to leaders as someone who's going to bring that bigger picture to them,
mhm,
because they aren't just walking around with a clipboard just to walk around with a clipboard. There's so much that we don't know. And even when I was a bedside nurse, I was kind of, one of those like, oh, the leader never does anything. She's just
mhm,
always on the computer. She's always coming out here telling us about classes and classes, until I really learned the bigger picture. And
mhm.
sometimes if you have a really good leader, they'll kind of break it down for you so you can see, like, this is the why behind why I have to say, "Hey, did you complete everything on your CAUTI checklist? Did you complete everything on your CLASI checklist?" Because I know we are all, as bedside nurses, going, "Oh, stupid audit again."
Yeah, yeah. But if you tell them the why, they will comply. They've got to
We're
know, why are
adults.
they doing this? Why is it important? Is this,
Yes.
do I really have to do this? And why should
Yeah,
I have to take time out of my day to get it done? What difference is it making?
right.
And that's what they
Because
really
we're
need to know.
adults. We don't wanna do
Yeah,
things just because you say to do them.
just because.
We
Yeah.
wanna know why, and how does this affect me, right, in
Mhm.
the long
Yes.
run? How
Yeah.
What am I gonna benefit from this? And I tell people all the time, "Look, You're gonna benefit because the hospital's gonna have money to get the new equipment. The hospital's
Mhm.
gonna have money to
Yeah.
get you a bonus. The hospital's gonna have money to get you a raise.
A
And
coworker.
so a new coworker, yes, right? A bigger break room, whatever it is that you're wanting, if we can keep the costs of having to pay for cotties and clapsies and happies and all of those things down, then we have money to spend on those things.
And it's because it's the right thing to do for the patient.
Is ultimately in the very end of the
If
day,
you were the one
yes.
in the bed, what kind of care would you have? Would you
Yes.
want? And yes, we have all of these accrediting bodies that we have to answer to that are there to keep our patients safe. But if we were working to the top of our ability and taking care of our patients the way we should, being audited shouldn't be a big deal.
Right. My philosophy is if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Exactly.
So if we just always do what we're supposed to do, then we don't have to scramble around when Joint Commission comes or DNV
Mhm.
comes or CMS comes or anybody comes because we're ready all the time. So if we just stay ready and we stay
Mhm.
doing what we're supposed to do the way we're supposed to do it, then we don't have to worry about getting ready.
Right. And it's those audits that help keep us ready.
Yes. So, Heather, what keeps you inspired in this work?
I honestly think nursing education is the best job ever. We have influence, we don't have power, but with power comes responsibility, so we don't have that either. No, we're the answer to a lot of problems in the hospital or throughout nursing, and I love being that kind of in between safe space where any nurse can come and ask a question or vent or, I can advocate on their behalf through education. Um, because I'm not their manager, I'm not their boss, I'm not the one who's writing their evaluation, but I can definitely help advocate for them. I can help get them the resources that they need or point them in the right direction of who can, talk through, you're going to have a uncomfortable conversation with your coworker or with your leader. Let's talk through that. So we're that safe space. And what keeps me engaged is that nursing is always changing. It's the yin and yang. It's what we love about nursing and what we hate about nursing is that it's always changing. So through education, that's part of why I went into education because I was getting burned out. I was getting very stagnant and education forces you to stay fresh. Forces you to keep reading the literature, keep asking the why, keep refreshing and not doing things the same way that you did them last year. Um, and like I said, just seeing the growth in the residents and my coworkers even. I love to see somebody. I hired a nurse. She's actually now retired, but when I was a manager of education, we hired a director, and I was actually we were competing for the director role, and she was coming in from outside, and she actually got the job. And I knew upon hiring her, I was like, this woman, actually, we hired her to be an educator first. I was like, this woman is going to be my boss. She's incredible. I don't know why she took this lowly job because she could definitely be my boss. And then she was, and she mentored me, and it was fabulous. So everybody should have a mentor, and you may have multiple throughout your career as
Mhm.
you take different turns, but ask questions. If you find somebody who has the type of job or the type of attitude that you wish you had, buddy up with them. Find out how did they do that? How'd they get there?
I love that story. And I have a similar story that you probably know already. It's I applied for a nurse residency coordinator position. And there was another person who also applied for this position. And I didn't know her before. She got the position, and I was a little sad at first, but they called me back and they're like, hey, we had this other position, and so the nurse residency coordinator, it was me or this other person. One of us was going to get it, right? And it was the other person. It was Marla. And so they called me, they're like, we had this other position, and I was like, well, it's not exactly what I applied for, but hey, you know what, I've already been doing some of the similar things at another organization, so it won't be that hard to transition into that because I already have that background, right? So
Mhm.
I won't have to learn a whole new role along with a whole new organization. And I loved it. And then I met the person who got my role, who absolutely should have gotten the role because she's amazing. And we became like instant BFFs. So, yes, I totally get that story because I have like the same story. Like, yes, she deserved it. It was definitely the role for her. And I never held any animosity for that because she's an amazing person. And I still got to be in an amazing organization, working and doing things that I love to do, and I get to do that every single day, so I'm definitely not mad at that.
Yeah. And you never want to burn a bridge in nursing. Healthcare and especially nursing is so small. You're going to run into somebody again in your career, or they're going to know somebody who knows somebody who, they find out you're going to their organization and they're going to look you up, or they're going to
Yes.
ask all their friends, hey, do you know this person? And, if you've gotten a negative reputation, it could prevent you from getting a job in the future, or somebody you burned may end up your boss someday.
Right,
Mm,
right.
what it just
And
take
that's
those
especially
opportunities. You don't have to like everybody, but you have to respect everybody and get them to respect you. And you have,
right.
be nice. Just,
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Heather, for being with us today.
you
Appreciate you
are so
taking the
welcome.
time.
This was fun.
Residency coordinators are the architects of growth. They
Uh-huh.
build bridges between education and practice, and they shape the confidence and competence of every nurse who enters the field. Heather's story reminds us that leadership in nursing isn't just about policy, it's about people. And that's why we nurse. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Why We Nurse. If this conversation inspired you, share it with a fellow nurse, educator, or leader. Follow at Why We Nurse on Instagram for updates and behind the scenes content. Got a story to share or want to be a guest? Email me at whywenursepodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, stay strong, stay compassionate, and remember why you nurse.